Thank you, Maggie. Welcome to everybody. My job is to say some words, a few words of introduction to remind us, please, this slide, please, this, okay, thanks. To remind us the scope of this plenary and the many phases of participation and some major challenges we have to deal with, and wishfully the opening of a new scenario. Now, the scope, as we said, the scope of the plenary is to define and try to understand what a participatory society is. Now, in the Laudato Si, in this encyclical by the Pope, participatory society means opposing the new power structures based on the techno-economic paradigm and foster social participation in local contexts, understood as the constant and active involvement of local people from within their proper culture. This is the challenge we have to deal with. Now, John Paul II had, in a certain sense, anticipated this conference when he wrote, "The problem of the choice between participation and alienation is the central issue of our epoch. Alienation is the negation of participation. The actualization of the participation with respect to every human being appears as a duty for each one." Pope Francis has reminded us of this imperative on many occasions, and I must skip the quotations because we don't have much time. Now, as we all know, participation has a lot of different dimensions. It's a multidimensional phenomenon, and we have to concentrate, I think, on the distinction between inclusion and exclusion, what is the dialectic between these two opposite sides. On one side, participation means the opposite of exclusion, and therefore it requires inclusion in a reference system. On the other side, since inclusion can be pursued in various ways, participation can be articulated and qualified by different forms of integration between people and institutions, between the parts and the whole. If we assume that social exclusion is about broken relationships, there are always two parties to consider, the excluders as well as the excluded. Now, participation means to talk about these relationships in terms of reciprocal actions by both, which is an issue of relational inclusion from both sides. As Pope Benedict has written, the dynamics of inclusion are hardly automatic. Solutions need to be carefully designed to correspond to people's concrete lives. The theme of development can be identified with the inclusion in relation of all individuals within the one community of the human family, built in solidarity on the basis of the fundamental values of justice and peace. Now, the major challenges in pursuing a participatory society, I would like to just to underline some of them. We all know that the lack of participation is a multidimensional phenomenon that is largely due to the combination of economic and social deprivation and involves political, legal, and cultural factors. In a word, it is always a cumulative process of multiple and interrelated disadvantages. I would like only to point some major challenges that are mentioned in my written text, which is distributed on the table. The first one is the crisis of representative democracy. The question is representative democracy participatory? What are the alternatives? Another big challenge, of course, are the growing social inequalities. And the question is, in what way and to what extent do social inequalities actually prevent or distort participation? Third, the increase in migrations and the issue of the refugees. Fourth, the technological innovations. And finally, the religious and cultural conflicts emerging in a multicultural society. From a theoretical point of view, the social doctrine of the Church provides a fundamental inspiration and basic principles for positive solutions to these issues, but it needs to be translated into concrete actions in the face of what is happening. The planet is supposed to be globalized, but instead we witness the emergence of new processes of division, alienation, injustice, violence, and conflicts that hinder effective participation in society on the part of the people. Indeed, we need a new vision to make effective the participation of each and every human person in society. So our ambition, in a sense, is to open a new scenario. Humankind is bound to live in a post-ideological and constantly changing globalized world. We need to recognize that in our world, everything is closely interrelated. This is an expression by Pope Francis. Since the social doctrine of the Church is not linked to any historic ideology and fosters everybody to adopt an approach of transcendent openness to social issues, it can inspire new creativity in thinking about new solutions. So, since lack of time, I think I can only quote some emerging ideas that can be helpful. To talk about direct democracy, communal networks, civil relational economy, associational citizenship, co-production, relational goods are new emerging ideas to be considered. Just to have a look at the final slide, I think that our works will come out to outline new ideas and operational proposals to achieve a real participatory society. Thank you for your attention.